moving right along, chapter 5 of 8 chapters. There's 9 stages, but there's 8 chapters in the stages of bhakti. And this is beginning of attainment of taste. Towards the very top of the sadhana bhakti group, sadhana, then bhava, and then prema. So, taste, a big contrast between ruci and nishtha. Nishtha is guided by intelligence, one guides activities and mind, etc., towards the activity of sadhana, hearing and chanting about Krishna, and of course some taste, but taste becomes predominant as further purification takes place. Here's a nice description carrying over from the previous discussion. Vikshepa, or distraction. There was an obstacle to reach nishtha, and this is how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes, or commentators actually. Prior to the appearance of taste, or ruci, for the acts of devotion, the ruci is taste in hearing and chanting, and asakti is attachment to the object of hearing and chanting. The distinction. So here, prior to ruci, the mind constantly wanders in different topics. We're familiar with that one. In this stage, mode of passion, the practitioner feels relieved after completing the designated quota of service, such as chanting a fixed number of mantras. Such satisfaction only ensues after the fact from the sense of having fulfilled the duty, rather than in the moment. That is, the understanding or intuitive understanding that Bhagavan is present, being disclosed through the activity itself, and that is a mode of goodness effect. The prior is mode of passion effect. So, speaking in conventional terms, ruci awakens the sadhakas in the moment experiences. And that becomes their focus beyond what Bhaktivinoda Thakur called the counting game. He also kept a vow of vrata. Those that keep a vow, they're not just in the counting game or on the external completing the duty, but that's the focus. And then the focus in ruci is the experience of exchanging a relationship with Krishna through the medium of his holy name, because the holy name and Krishna are non-different. We discussed this a little bit, and now I'm going to go into a little bit more. This is drawn from Tattva Sandarbha, which is the first of the 6 Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami. And in the first half of Tattva Sandarbha is Pramana Kanda, or means of knowing. He starts with the question. Jiva Goswami says, I want to talk about Krishna, but before we talk about Krishna, first we should determine what's the best means of knowing the subject. Means of knowing the subject, or pramana. So there's the pramana kanda, the means of knowing anything. And then he goes through different systems of how you can know things. Sense perception, reason and logic, or inference, and then hearing from authority, and then hearing from imperfect authority, and hearing from perfect authority. And so Vedas is the best authority. Now, supposing you're a Buddhist, and you're a follower of Buddha who rejected the Vedas. There's a reason why he rejected the Vedas, because people were misusing the Vedas. And so he rejected the Vedas and gave teachings. And one of those teachings was, according to, I've not studied, but Jiva Goswami did, and wrote about it in several places in Tattva Sandarbha, the Pramana Kanda specifically, that section. In Buddhism, they don't acknowledge the soul, they don't deny the soul. Or he doesn't acknowledge, he doesn't deny. What he says is something similar to what we say, but not the same. He says consciousness is moment to moment. Same as what we discussed in the morning session. Mindfulness is a term that it was popularized by Buddhism. And then it became, commercialized. The mindful manager. Mindful eating, mindful this, mindfulness. Nothing wrong with mindfulness, but mindful of what? Well, if you're a Buddhist, there's only one thing, and that's the moment. And the phrase, the Sanskrit phrase for the moment is kshanika. It's 1/20th of a second by Vedic calculation. Calculation of time by the atom. Some of you have read that chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam. The time that it takes for the sun to pass over one atom is a certain division of time, and then so many of those keep going, and you get time as we know it. So kshanak, it's a detail. Kshanak is a fraction, is the blink of an eye. That's one way to translate it. Less than a moment. How long does it take for your eye to blink? Less than. So consciousness is moment to moment. And instead of saying consciousness as we use the term, his term, according to Jiva Goswami, is vijnana. Vijnana vada. Vada means doctrine. Kshanak or kshanika is a fraction, a moment, and consciousness is momentary. And because the past is gone, the future hasn't happened, all there is the moment. So be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. By meditation. Goodness and be in the moment. That's mindfulness in Buddhism. Mindfulness in Krishna consciousness is one mantra at a time. While you're chanting the mantra, be mindful of what the mantra is, the meaning of the mantra, and the sound of the mantra, and mantra. That's Krishna. Be with Krishna. That's the be in the moment mindfulness in bhakti. So that's not in the mode of ignorance. We heard this laya is fall asleep, and vikshepa is becoming distracted because I want something. And even in bhakti, I want to complete my rounds, or I want to fulfill some bhakti purpose. It's not wrong. Have a vow and have some purpose. But the essence is not, the essence is bhakti, just like that nice recording. Somehow it finally worked. What is it that we have to offer that's meaningful? There's this nice description, commentary on when Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows, and all those nice verses in the Bhagavatam where he's glorifying Krishna, glorifying Krishna, glorifying Krishna. What does he have to offer? His body can't do anything. He's nailed to the ground. Bed of arrows. And even, what else is there in this world? A commentator says, what is there of this temporary world that's worth offering to him? So at least let me offer my thoughts of him to him. Nice. That's this gratitude topic. Giving thanks to the Supreme through our thoughts and our words. And actions. So ruci is where it's not just accomplishing something, it's the something. It's the object. So we spoke about two types of nishtha, and the second type of nishtha had a feature of characteristics of goodness that are attributes that help one get closer to Krishna, or they're favorable for Krishna bhakti. This is review. This second type of nishtha, steadiness in bhakti, may be achieved with the support of elements favorable to bhakti. That's the second type of steadiness. Giving respect, etc., etc. Without having yet attained actual steadiness. The second, it's complete when there's all these nice qualities. So back to our celebrated chart. In the ruci stage, we looked at the same chart, focused on the nishtha. In the ruci stage, the spiritualization of I and mind, this conception of self, it's dominant. It's not only detectable, it's dominant. And the residual effect is beyond the nishtha stage. It's very little. Very, very little. And the meditation upon the object of devotion, Krishna, becomes very lasting, long-lasting. This is because when there's taste, that's where your attention goes. So more on the topic of ruci. This is going to be a shorter class, so we'll have some time for discussion, Krishna permitting. So now, look up at the top. There's the word ruci in the middle. And when there's ruci, another term for us to learn. Vastu, let's do it this way, rather than try to read it from the screen. Ruci means taste. When the devotee takes into his heart the golden jewel, another metaphor, or was a golden medallion, now it's a golden jewel, or medallion of bhakti, shining brightly by the fire of steady, uninterrupted practice, and propelled by its own energy. This is the self-manifesting, not just guided by intelligence feature. He gives the example, young student, he starts to study. Remember that young student that started to study? Utsaha Mayi, and then Ganatarala, those first two stages. So here's a young student, after studying daily, gradually begins to understand the import of the scriptures, and then this gives him a taste to go on with his studies. And it's no longer a burden. In the beginning it may be, studies. So in this attainment of taste, here's some symptoms. Everything else is a waste of time. Like it doesn't become distracted because there's no value in that's something else. when the laya, distinct from this stage that interferes or retards bhakti in the nishtha stage, no fatigue, and goes on and on and on. Like, devotees can have japa sessions that just go on and on and on, or kirtan sessions that go on and on, or hearing katha that goes on and on. And for some people, it's like, that's not easy for them. And some people, it's just the more they go, the more they go. It's easy for them. That's at a different stage of bhakti. Great attachment for hearing and chanting, especially those two activities. Supposing one doesn't have a taste, or prior to taste, the same example that we've heard so many times, it's right in Rupa Goswami's writings, it's again in Jiva Goswami's writings. Someone who has jaundice, the medicine, one of the medicines that's recommended for jaundice is misri or rock candy that tastes bitter, but keep tasting the bitter because it's sweet and it becomes sweet. So that's the cure. Similarly, even if one doesn't have a taste, go on hearing and chanting, because sweetness is within the hearing and chanting. Now we're looking backwards over our shoulder, and in the prior stages, this is attainment of taste, it's up at the top. Prior, there isn't taste yet. And there's ignorance, and there's other sufferings that the medicine can be given to cure the disease. That's the hearing and chanting itself. And gradually, the taste of the rock candy for a person with jaundice patient comes through. And, the same can be said in our process of chanting. In the process of chanting, the essence is the chanting. And having a taste or not having a taste, there's chanting. Having a taste, then it's self-propelled. It doesn't require guidance by the intelligence. It's just self-propelled. And in the prior stage, the contrast is in Nishtha, it's guided. It's not pointing the finger at intelligence saying, shame on you, you shouldn't guide your mind. It's just describing a stage where it doesn't require it. Because there's a taste, the mind goes to that which it has a taste for. It's just a distinction of stage of bhakti. So moving from nishtha to ruci, this is an example that is given by Vishwanath Chakravarti from Uddhava Gita. Oh, my dear Krishna, Uddhava to Krishna, your pastimes are supremely auspicious for mankind and are an intoxicating beverage for the ears. Tasting, asvadya is the word. Having tasted. That means there's the stage of, it's identifying the stage of ruci may eventually come. Having tasted such pastime, people forget their desires for other things. Bhagavad Gita question. Did she make sure everybody's awake and alert after breakfast? Question. Where does Krishna say this in Bhagavad Gita? Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita. Where does he say it in Bhagavad Gita? Raise your hand, somebody that has the answer. Brahmani Gavya Hastini Shunachaiva Supakita Pandita Sabadarshana. Not that one. Yeah, so what's the higher taste? Param Drishtva. Ah, good going. Param Drishtva. Rasovarjam Rasopyasya. Param Drishtva Nivartante. So for those who are embodied, that's pretty much all of us. There may be some other entities floating around somewhere, but most of us are embodied. For those who are embodied, controlling the mind and senses is not an easy task. But it's an easy task for those who have a higher taste. Pram drishtva. So asvadya, having tasted, that's ruci. So there's preliminary, then it gets more mature, more mature, more mature. That's just as we discussed. Little Narada, before he was Narada in his previous life, a little son of a Shudrani, he had a taste, preliminary, but it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. And it became perfected person. So once having a taste, then other things are forgotten. Vishaya venivartante. What's the rest? Nira harasya dehinam. Rasavarjam rasopyasya. Pram drishtva nivartate. Vishaya means sense enjoyment. Do you know that verse? It's a good one. Look it up and learn it. Mom will help you. Vishaya means sense enjoyment. Senses, sense objects, woo, woo, woo. That's Vishaya. Vishaya, vinivartante, niraharasha, dehi nam. Those who are embodied, dehi nam. There's the deha and there's the dehi, the body and the occupier of the body. Dehi nam. It's difficult to overcome Vishaya, sense enjoyment. But having tasted the topics of Krishna, the intoxicating beverage for the ears, this is Uddhava to Krishna, people forget their desire for other things. So anyway, scriptural reference. And in this context, it's later at least, Uddhava is begging Krishna, please don't leave me. You haven't said you're going to leave, but I know you're going to leave because I know you. And you're not going to stay. So please don't leave me. You can go, but take me with you to your own abode, having tasted the topics of you. Then later in the same section, this is Jiva Goswami's commentary on a later verse from Uddhava Gita. He explains how one can attain ruci or taste from jata ruci. What's a jata ruci? It's where one has yet to attain ruci, from not having attained it to attain it. This explanation, Jiva Goswami breaks the verse down and says it's faith is the criterion for eligibility, and then Shraddha, having established faith, means being endowed with trust in the words of the scripture, or the words of Krishna, or the words of Guru, or the same thing. Pritya, these are terms found in this verse, 11th canto. Being attached to whatever taste for bhakti that has come about. So that is to say, that how Krishna reveals himself in different ways, but one of them is the sweetness that one may experience, and that's Krishna. Krishna is revealing himself to such a devotee. And then there's firm resolve. Once that's there, I don't want this lesser, I want the relationship with Krishna and the experience of being in that relationship with Krishna. That's what I want. And have a very firm determination and readiness to make all kinds of effort. This is on the same topic, Jiva Goswami making his commentary in Bhakti Sandarbha on taste. Further in Bhakti Sandarbha, the explanation is given. For those who covet bhakti characterized by love, that's priti, but bhakti characterized by priti, so it's not in priti sandarbha, it's in bhakti sandarbha. Taste is very important. I'll say it again. Bhakti characterized by love, to get there has to be some taste. And when taste is there, then there's the impetus to go further, go further, go further. Hear more elaborately. Just, kind of like what we're doing. We're hearing about the unfolding of the creeper of bhakti. And then there's more, and then there's more. And, some of you are faithful. You're still here. You haven't walked out. That's a good sign. And I don't think it's because I can speak so well. I think it's because the subject matter is relevant. And wanting to reach that coveted situation where love predominates, a loving mission in life. Everyone without exception. Birds and beasts and fish and all living entities, they have a tendency to be in a relationship of love and being loved. And, it's misplaced, but in the properly placed, that's the intelligence guiding that tendency, it can bring one to the stage where it's spontaneous. So for those who covet bhakti characterized by love, this taste is best. Then here comes a topic that we talked about before. It's just another way. This is Jiva Goswami's way of saying the same thing that we said before. Guided by intelligence, he uses this word again and again and again. Vichara pradhan. Vichara is by deliberation. At least that's how commonly it's translated. So you hear something, and you deliberate on that something. And it goes, yeah. And then you hear some more, yeah. And then hear it again, yeah. So it's by deliberation. And that's nice. Guided by Scripture. And Guru and Sadhu. But Guru and Sadhu are representing Scripture. So it's guided by Scripture. By deliberation. Vichara pradhan. Bhakti Sandarbha says the spontaneous or ruci pradhan is superior. It's both can lead to taste, but one is superior. Supposing one does by deliberation, eventually it may become spontaneous because it's the real thing. Take some worldly thing, riding a bicycle. Do you ride a bicycle? When you first started riding a bicycle, was it easy? A little clumsy, right? But practice and practice and practice, and you don't have to think about it. There's a little boy that was riding around his bicycle. He was like intimidating people. The bike is, tiny. He was just like go zooming ahead towards people and then stop. And then he smiled, then he finds somebody else and goes zooming toward that somebody. And it's like he was playing. Intimidating, playing. You never did that, of course. I didn't either. But something that it takes practice and practice and practice and practice, that's this deliberation thing. And spontaneous, it's just spontaneous. And it may be that one hears it, that's okay, but it doesn't take deliberation and deliberation, hearing it again and practicing it and practicing. So there's vidhi and rag. Same topic. Remember that topic? Say yes. Oh yeah. Vidhi sadhana bhakti, raga sadhana bhakti, ragavnika or raganuga sadhana bhakti. And they're both sadhana. But one is driven more by taste than by vidhis. And it takes intelligence to know what's to be done, what's not to be done, and do the what's to be done, and don't do the not what's to be done. And it takes intelligence to discern this from that, and then to stay with it. That directs the mind and the senses. It's good. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's good. It's good. And there's a certain kind of taste. But they're coming to predominated when one has a desire to come to the platform of love and be loved with Krishna, so that the medium is the hearing and chanting activity. So it's taste for the hearing and chanting that can lead one to the asakti stage, and then it's attachment for the object of hearing and chanting. But it takes becoming attached to the hearing and chanting. They're the right kind of hearing and chanting. Because birds, they get up in the morning and they're singing away. And devotees get up in the morning and they're singing away. But the topic is different. And the result is different. It's the prerogative of human form of life. Okay. So this is called those who in whose devotional life taste has not awakened. Remember this term? You don't have to say yes, but the term is ajata ruci, taste that is not yet sprouted, ajata ruci. For those that in whose practice ajata ruci has not yet sprouted, this deliberation path is important or imperative. Why is it, the why question? That's a good question. Why? Why, you fill in the blank. Why chant? Why chant attentively? Why bhakti? Why anything? Why get up in the morning? Why, anything? Why brush my teeth? Why do anything? The purposefulness, the purposefulness, the mission, the human form of life. What's it all about? What are you supposed to do with this thing, the human form of life? Anyway. And why? Who is thoughtful? They ask those kinds of questions. Those who aren't thoughtful, they live their life. Eat, sleep, mate and defend, eat, drink, be merry, and die. And then get born again and do it again. So human life is not meant for that. So anyway, I wanted to have a shorter class so we can have time for questions, and I'm talking too much, so I have to. For those who have not had taste, deliberation is a phrase that he uses. I mean, there's like pages of making this distinction from different angles of vision. Those who have acquired a taste, they follow this path spontaneously. Here's an example that he gives in Bhakti Sandarbha. The spiritually advanced have taken to devotional service. Such wise men hardly bother with Vedic study. Instead, they engage themselves in practical devotional service without rendering devotional service unto you. Who can achieve that which is meant for the Paramahamsas? Now this is Prahlad's prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. Look at them. They're looking at each other in the eye, and Lord Nrsingadev just ripped Hiranyakashipu apart, but he's looking at Prahlad like, I want to hear what you have to say. He's absorbed. It's very nice. Very nice painting, very nice exchange. And Prahlad knows what to say, because he's on that spontaneous platform. He understands the medium of that exchange is devotional service. And the emphasis is not so much concern about deliberation. Such wise men hardly bother with Vedic study. Now, it doesn't mean we should not bother with Vedic study. We should bother with Vedic study. That's why the Vedas are there, for study, for elevation. Here's a nice Bhakti Siddhanta story. I'm going to break my rule to tell another story. There was a British scholar, I forget which university, but my memory says it was Oxford University, but maybe it wasn't. From some prestigious university in England, he heard about Bhakti Siddhanta, he wanted to meet Bhakti Siddhanta. He went all the way from London, all the way to Calcutta, from Calcutta to Mayapur. Finally made it. Professor Southers was his name. And he was brought to meet Bhakti Siddhanta. Bhakti Siddhanta said, if you don't mind, I'm busy completing a task right now. Could you wait a little bit? Go with the devotees and do some simple service while you're waiting, and I'll get to you as soon as I can. He finished. He called Professor Southers and he asked Professor Southers, now please share with me what you came all the way from London to ask. And he said, I got the answers just from doing devotional service. And then Bhakti Siddhanta spoke for 20 minutes about, from devotional service, causelessly knowledge and detachment arise. But supposing Bhakti Siddhanta gave an answer before the devotional service, would he have understood it? Maybe, maybe not. The medium of understanding is devotional service. That's the point. That's Prahlad's point in this verse that's on the screen. Without devotional service, how can one achieve the situation of achievable by Paramahamsas? And I've made this point, here it is again. There's little Narada Muni before he was Narada Muni. In the background, that's his mother, the maid servant of Brahmanas, and some sages were staying in the ashram of the Brahmanas for the 4 months of the rainy season. The mother was rendering service. Little boy was sitting there being a little boy and hearing the Bhaktivedantas, and they saw that he's very gentle, and they took compassion upon him and disclosed many teachings and many things. So this is early. He has some taste. The path of taste, or ruci pradhan, was exhibited by Sri Narada. In his past life, he was a 5-year-old son of a maidservant. He daily listened to the discourses of the elevated devotees who would come to stay for the duration of the rainy season at the home of the Brahmanas, where his mother was engaged in service. At this tender age, he did not really have capacity for deliberation. Makes sense? He's not deliberative. He just had this natural taste. He heard, but he didn't have the capacity for deliberation, and it did something. Narada explicitly admits that he regularly heard the stories of Krishna, and an attraction for them arose of its own accord. His heart was captivated, and thus he took to the path of bhakti. This is one of the ways, and there's many, many other ways, but one of the ways that Jiva Goswami is compare, contrast. It's one of the educational tools. You say what something is, and you then say what it isn't. And you give examples of what it isn't, and then you give examples of what it is. So it's compare, contrast technique or tool. His point, the main point for this discussion is Narada Muni was on the platform of spontaneous devotion from 5 years old, because he didn't have the capacity to contemplate and understand this versus that. It was a very unique person. And then in Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami adds this nice little point. The preliminary faith, the Adau Shraddha, gradually matures into bhava and prema. And so also does the preliminary seed like taste, ruci. So what does that mean? One of the statements of Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur in Madhurya Kadambini about the 9 stages of bhakti is it starts with faith, and all of the other 8 stages is just further development of faith. Faith and prema at stage of faith. One way of looking at those 9 stages of bhakti is faith is maturing, the seed is maturing. Similarly, as the seed matures from preliminary faith to prema, so also taste starts somewhere, and it matures and it matures and matures and matures, and in this stage of prema, it's fully matured. It's not that the person in prema doesn't have taste, or until you reach prema, you don't really have taste. In the preliminary stages, there can be taste. Now, here's this topic that I brought up a few times, and now it's in the ruci section of Madhurya Kadambini. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur makes reference to Bhakti Sandarbha, and in Bhakti Sandarbha, Canto 11, Chapter 8, there's a reference to ruci for ragatmika bhakti. That's kind of let's unpack that a little bit. Ragatmika bhakti, we heard. It's the kind of bhakti of the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. They're ragatmikas. And then ragatmika bhakti is their bhakti. And the follower of the ragatmika bhaktas, or ladies as well, but those engaged in spontaneous devotional service, eternal associates of Krishna, that's a raganuga person, raganuga sadhana. Externally, vidhis. Internally, follow the path of the ragatmikas. That's raganuga bhakti. Now, here, Jiva Goswami is making a related but different point, and that there can be ruci for ragatmika bhakti. And to illustrate it purposefully, commentators say it's purposeful, he selected Pingala, because she, Pingala, didn't have any good sukriti, the opposite, duskriti. And character that went with it. So I'm not going to read all the text, but the text says she was a prostitute in Mithila. Doesn't say when, but she was a prostitute, and she would dress herself nicely, sit by her door. A man would come, and she'd watch the man come and think maybe him, and then it wasn't him. The next one. She, eventually she would go in and out of her doorway and come back out, and eagerly anticipating. It was her livelihood, being a prostitute. She didn't know anything else, so that's what she did. And enough of that passed, where she began to introspect. Besides, I'm not feeling, I feel crummy that no men are stopping. But not only I feel crummy that no men are stopping, I'm feeling crummy about having this as an occupation. What a horrible! Then she began feeling disgusted with sense gratification and the contemplation of sense gratification. She made a turn. Not by hearing this, contemplation thing, but she just internally because something happened. And she began somehow, she began thinking about the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, as the consort of Narayana. Now she has this relationship of conjugal love with Narayana, and she has everything. She doesn't have to stand at her doorstep and waiting, when is the next Narayan going to come along? She doesn't have that problem. So she then, in the fast lane, she started to contemplate becoming a follower of the goddess of fortune and having as her companion in life Lord Narayan, and so forth and so on. And she went very quickly to very elevated stages of bhakti. That's example. So eventually she became all the lights went on. She became very realized about the temporality of material existence and the unprecedented happiness of spiritual existence. And she didn't become Vaishnava scholar, but she became a learned person, became a spiritual master of perfected Brahmana, an Avadhuta Brahmana. That's the context. The context of hearing all of this is Krishna speaking to Uddhava, because Uddhava was asking questions about higher stages of bhakti. So Krishna, said, let me tell you a nice story about your predecessor, King Yadu. King Yadu heard from a Brahmana who was an Avadhuta, perfected Brahmana. Avadhuta can have negative connotations. It's taken into positive. He was totally detached. And as a totally detached Brahmana, he had 9 gurus. And one of them was a prostitute previously, but she had all this realization. So Krishna told the story of Pingala, a prostitute in Mithila, who became the guru of this perfected Brahmana. And perfected Brahmana is teaching King Yadu how to live your life. That's the storyline, the context. But it's Jiva Goswami is pinpointing it because here's the little graphic. That's the Avadhuta Brahmana, by the way, that fellow on the left. And there's the Pingala, the prostitute, out there on the right. And she became disgusted with her, not right away, but in the course of this narration, she had become disgusted with her profession and became so immersed in ruci, a self-propelled ruci, not by contemplation or by hearing from some authority, but in this other manner, the whole material lure that worldly people like, she didn't see it as beautiful anymore. So now back, there are 2 types of nishtha. Now there's 2 types of ruci. Another list. But some, it's similar. Where the elements are nice, I have some taste. Elements are not nice, I don't have taste. Kirtan, we like the best kirtan performers. And it's nice, best kirtan performers. And sometimes people don't sing so nicely. Have you noticed? Sometimes. Doesn't have the same taste. And if the taste is dependent upon the elements, that's kirtan. It could be the prashadam or whatever. Something. And when it doesn't matter, vastu, in this case, is these 2 terms. Vastu, vashishtya, apekshani, and vastu, vaishishtya, anapekshani. So of vastu, the commentators explain this means the object, Krishna, the personality of Godhead, vastu. Vastu can mean different things. But in this case, it means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, worshipable. When there's dependence upon the excellence of elements for there to be taste, then it indicates there's some impurity or dosha, the fault or abhasa of dosha. Some impurity is remaining. And when there's no something very nice, then that's another standard, not dependent upon the excellence. But that person who is not dependent upon the excellence, one of their characteristics is humility, profound humility, as we discussed in the morning session. So such a person may be thinking, I am so unfortunate. I've kept the precious jewel of bhakti received from my spiritual master tied in the hem of my cloth. I lick up the bitter, tasting, deceitful, profane gossip as if nectar. I become sleepy during katha, but my ears perk up when there's vulgar talk. I have stained the assembly of devotees. No, it doesn't have to be like that, but someone may think like that. It's some form of very intense humility. This kind of talk, one can become depressed, but this kind of talk from an elevated Vaishnava is an impetus. Here's two Bhaktisiddhanta stories. Three. One of his vows during Kartik was he would eat a meal once a day. He wouldn't shave. Sometimes you see him with a photograph with a beard because he didn't shave. Minimize the material. He didn't shave. And that one meal a day, try it, unsalted khichdi. No salt. And he would eat not with his hand or a spoon, he ate with his mouth like a horse or a dog. He leaned over on a leaf plate, unsalted khichdi, and licked it up. And when you lean over like that, your stomach shrinks. Your capacity to eat diminishes by leaning over. And as soon as you sat up, that was it. For 4 months of the rainy season. Or I think it was the 4 months of rainy season. It may have just been Kartik. But in any case, very strict in his vow. But he wasn't like into it for taste. It was just for maintaining his body. So he did what he did. Not like we imitate. Don't try to imitate. And another time when there was nice prasadam, this is another Bhaktisiddhanta story, they would put this preparation, that preparation, that preparation. And too much. You know how that goes. So he would take a little portion, then he'd mix it. So it was indistinguishable from one thing from another thing. It became khichdi. And that was his meal. Then a third example. He particularly liked the kirtan of one devotee who regularly sang off tune. And, Bengalis, they like sweet kirtan. Everyone likes sweet kirtan. Bengalis are particularly sweet singers, and he particularly regularly called upon a certain person who didn't sing so nicely. There are some people that are like that. I have found the people that sing off tune, they like to sit right in front and they sing really loud. And they're enjoying it. I'm not on this second platform, but I notice it. And it's okay. It's okay. But where the elements are nice, that's a certain kind of taste. And when the elements may not be so nice, that's another kind of taste. Because what's the taste is the bhakti that's behind it. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta liked about this particular kirtan performer. Bhakti was really special. Now sometimes you put both of them together and that's like super nice. Okay. Devotional service, here we are in metaphor land again. It's like a dance. And guess who the dance instructor is? Ruci. Dance instructor is Ruci. And gradually as Ruci grows, the last vestiges of bad qualities are uprooted from the heart. we had a list of good qualities and there's a list of bad qualities, and it's not purposeful, but it happens. Taste for the activity of hearing and chanting, and it's like having a full-time janitor making things clean inside. But it's not like we want Krishna to be our janitor, but Krishna is happy to do that. For those, not exactly janitor, but making the bad qualities disappear. At this mature stage of ruci, one becomes fixed in seva nishtha. So that means to Krishna and Krishna's devotees, one becomes fixed. One hears and chants in a strong and steady way. Of course, the gopis, there are more than at the stage of ruci, but they certainly had hearing and chanting that was strong. Here's bhajana rahasya that closely parallels Madhurya Kadambini. When sadhana bhakti succeeds in softening the heart by various tastes, this is known as ruci. The word ruci indicates an awakening of 3 desires. We've heard them again. If we were going to have an exam at the end, this would be a good exam question. So pay attention, please. There's the desire in the heart of the jiva to serve the Lord favorably, a feeling of affinity, so emphasis upon service. Another is emphasis upon gaining the association from the core of one's heart. And then prapti abhilas, desire to very personal, confidential association with the Lord. Let's do it again. Coveting strongly and strongly and strongly a desire to be in service, that's natural. Having an affinity for the object, Krishna, or the deity. There's a devotee that's visiting here that he's in a Shringa Bhakta. When you bump into him, it's like Nishringa, 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 Nishringa. He's in a Shringa Bhakta. You don't have to figure it out, he'll tell you. So, affinity for the object, and having a desire for personal association with that object or the supreme. Service, affinity for the person, intimate association, these 3, prapti. At the stage of ruci, they're impelled by intelligence. The stage of asakti, we're not there yet. We'll see this same list again when we get to the asakti stage shortly. These 3 desires are spontaneous. They don't need guidance by intelligence. Rupa Goswami has the following things to say about ruci. And this is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, these same verses, these celebrated verses, the 9 stages of bhakti. Jiva Goswami comments about ruci means the desire for the Lord, but with direction by the intelligence or intellect. Asakti doesn't require guidance by the intelligence, it's spontaneous. Ruci is a longing or thirst for Krishna. When this thirst is imbued with a favorable disposition, it's the very life of bhakti. Simultaneously, a longing for serving Krishna with affection and warmth, same as Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary, same 3. It's a good list because it has to do with higher stages of bhakti. And, we're not there yet, but that's okay. We could know elements of that higher stage of bhakti. to be in service to the Supreme, attached to the object, and wishing to be in a close, personal, intimate association with that Supreme. The topics of Sri Krishna do not appear tasteful unless one attains the ruci stage. This is known as Madhurya Anubhav, or realization of sweetness. In this stage, avidya, the very root of sins, is destroyed. Remember back? Sinful activity has as its root avidya. Sinful activity doesn't have as its root desire, it's ignorant desire. Ignorance covering the living entity, or consciousness. So ignorant desire. And ignorance is gone, so desire is there. But without ignorance, when ignorance is gone, there's taste. And in stages, taste, attachment, bhava, and prema. Further, ruci, this is Rupa Goswami's writings, quickly makes the devotee addicted to his practice. Emphasis, asakti is attachment to the object, ruci is attachment to the hearing and chanting, and attachment to the angas, starting with hearing and chanting. And eventually ruci leads to attachment to the object of one's hearing and chanting. So there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is beyond ruci. And the associates of Mahaprabhu are also. So here's final. There's a nice bumblebee. By good fortune, those who attain ruci will come across the literary works describing the transcendental glories of Sri Gauranga. This literature captures the essence of the Vedas, likened to a mystical flowering tree, fulfilling all desires. This fortunate devotee becomes like a honeybee who constantly drinks the ambrosia from flower blossoms. Two more slides. Seeking the company of saints, this is Prabhupada. Those who attain ruci shun the common crowd. Residing in holy places, they are impelled to engage in service to the Supreme Lord with a pure heart. After serving the Lord with a pure heart, or ruci, the divine dancer then attracts the devotee's attention, and he, ruci, aspires to learn dancing. The devotee should then associate with the rasika bhaktas. This isn't Prabhupada's language, this is someone describing a personality like Prabhupada, rasika bhakta. Expert in the art of dancing, and learn from them. For the first time, the devotee thus experiences an ecstasy beyond description. With the passage of time, the two perfect dance masters, Bhava and Prema, appear and teach the devotee the sublime dances. So here's a nice painting of the sublime dances. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gift to the world. Of course, there's fundamental, all of this is fundamental, the stages of bhakti, but it leads to higher stages of bhakti. It's 11:35. So we have 25 minutes. Is that right? Yeah. My congratulations to all of you for sticking with it. Because it's been, I'm having a good time preparing, like lots of preparation. Just even to do the graphics, it takes time, but to speak of the content. But it's very relishable. but it's, you know, it's presenting it. You know, something resonates inside, and I don't know how it's resonating with all of you because it's newer stuff. What to speak of all this nomenclature, and you're still here, so congratulations. And you described this before. It's like learning something, like riding a bicycle. Like riding a bicycle. You know, in the beginning, it's not easy. So in the beginning, you all this nomenclature and all the details is like, whew, am I in the right Hare Krishna movement, or can you make it easier, please? Do you have to know all this stuff to go back to Godhead? To awaken Krishna Bhakti? You don't have to know all this stuff, but there's stages. There are stages. In the unfolding of a creeper, there's stages. If you're a horticulturist, you know the stages of the growth of a vine. And if you're a Hare Krishna devotee, then you may know, if you're Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, you're going to know the stages of the unfolding of bhakti. Supposing you don't know all those stages, supposing you're not a PhD in horticulture, so then what? Chant and be happy. And it's going to happen. And if you want to know, well, what about this and what's that, go to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he'll tell you. And by hearing these things, it's part of bhakti. It's bhakti. It is bhakti. Hearing about bhakti is bhakti. Bhakti awakens bhakti. Well, little by little. You don't understand everything right away, that's okay. Just keep hearing it, little by little. Although I don't know if I'm going to learn all those things, it's on a Tesla panel. I don't know if I'm going to learn all those things. I don't have affinity for technology. Some people do. They get fascinated. Oh, let me get the latest. Anyway, the essence is get from point A to point B in your car. That's, you know, pretty simple. So we want to get from where we are to where we want to go. And to get there, you have a good GPS system. And Madhurya Kadambini is a good GPS system. Even if you don't understand all the directions, it's okay. Stay with it. And slowly it becomes clearer, slowly. Be clear what the goal is, and then there's stages to reach the goal. And then have a little celebration when you reach the next stage, and the next stage, the next stage. Keep going. Somebody's phone is talking or something like that. Okay, they're going to shut the phone off. Okay, there's a hand. That was quick. Just waiting for me to stop talking. And I took 4 minutes of your time. Go ahead, give it to Mataji.
I'm sorry, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, thank you for the session. Today is my first day here, but I was watching.
Really?
So I have watched your Madhurya Kadambini a few years back, but I was also watching as it was streamed on YouTube. So, but this time I understand better than last time.
Okay, good.
I have some questions on these two topics, ruci and the nishtha. So on ruci, when they mentioned about the elements, the bhakti, so I was comparing the topmost bhakti is in association of devotees. I learned that no matter where you are, you're supposed to serve. in devotional service unto Lord. So topmost bhakti is the bhakti of the gopis.
I'm waiting for the but. But
Yeah, so, but in here it says that in this ruci state, direct service to the Lord, desiring for that. And then you also mentioned there are all kinds of bhakti, the topmost bhakti. So I'm thinking like where that topmost bhakti lies in that.
say the question part slowly. Not the whole preamble, just the question part.
So where does the topmost bhakti, that is the, if I understand it properly, the topmost bhakti is the bhakti that the gopis exhibit.
You're way ahead of us, but yes.
Okay.
How do we know that? We know that from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's how we know that.
So then, but these are the stages of
Yes, these are the stages.
So where is the topmost bhakti in these stages of bhakti?
Oh, it's beyond. We'll get there, but since you're asking the question,
I won't be here tomorrow.
Oh, well, I'll tell you a sneak preview. You can hear the YouTube recordings. I've been showing these charts. It shows the 9. In one of the charts, it shows 10. Attaining the lotus feet of the Lord. So then there's a slide that says, what? What's this? What's beyond prema? And then the answer provided is, what's beyond prema is those like the gopis or the eternal associates of Krishna in the spiritual world. They no longer have a material body. Their body is fully spiritual. So if you attain that as the gopis, so they're beyond the prema stage. They're in prema and beyond the prema stage. They're in the topmost stage. You know, there are different terminologies that say the same thing, but it's saying the terminologies are saying the same thing. Beyond the stage of perfection, they're ragatmikas, the eternal associates of the Lord. You don't become an eternal associate. You can become a servant of the eternal associate. And that's prema. But then there are those that are beyond prema, the eternal associates. Got it?
I do have...
You and I we're eligible. Just stay with it. We can come to the prema stage, but we can't become eternal associates. We can become servants of the eternal associates. You want to hear some detail?
Yes.
Okay. It's a nice detail. So I'll say it. There's Radha and Krishna. Jiver Swarpaya Krishnera Nityadas. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, the living entities is a jiva, and the living entities are the expansions of Krishna. Living entities, the jivas, are expansions of Krishna. Yes? Mame Vangsa Jiva, Bhagavad Gita. You know Bhagavad Gita a little bit? Mame Vangsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. The jivas are eternally Sanatana jivas, and they're my eternal fragmental parts, angsas. Living entities are the angsas, eternal fragmental parts of Krishna. Now let's go over here. Radharani has her expansions. She can expand. She does. And who does she expand into? You name it. The Shaktis. All the queens, all the associates, all the gopis, all the goddesses of fortune, they're Radharani's expansions. Now, can you become one of those? No. You can become a servant of those. Does that answer your question?
I have a follow-up question.
Okay, but you follow the answer?
Yes.
You can become, okay, I don't have to say it again. Go ahead.
So I've seen devotees who actually feel that nectar or feel that pain in separation when they're not able to perform the devotional service because they're attaining some other duties, prescribed duties, things like that.
Now, wait a minute. Because they're engaged in duty, they can't feel ecstasy?
Not ecstasy. It's, let's say one is into sadhana bhakti.
Would say what?
Sadhana bhakti,
Okay.
Vaidhi bhakti.
That's a stage. Okay, fine.
Let's say deity worship.
Okay.
But for some reason, they could not perform that that day. But they feel that pain of not being able to do that. What kind of level is that?
It depends. It can be mode of ignorance. It could be transcendental humility. Transcendental humility. Or somewhere in between. Depends. The emotion is not a problem. Misdirected emotion is a problem. Ignorance, our dear friend ignorance, which covers the living entity since time immemorial, since the beginning of time and before the beginning of time, immemorial. The ignorance covers. So it can be an ignorance emotion. Oh, boo-hoo. And can become sad and get worse, depressed, or becomes, cuckoo. Or it can be a genuine humility, a genuine humility. Where a very elevated, we spoke about this in the morning session about profound humility. Did you hear the recording? And Prabhupada is speaking as if he's one of us, and all of a sudden he enters into this deep mood. And when we go on forward, we'll hear of examples of Prabhupada completely lost it in a public assembly, getting so deeply absorbed in a mood of devotion that he went into trance right in front of us. So it depends. My answer to your question is it depends.
Yes, yes.
And the consciousness that's behind that emotion, not just the emotion per se. Okay?
I have one more question.
Sure.
On that.
I like your questions, by the way.
Thank you, Maharaj. Nishtha, when you mentioned about the obstacles, 5 obstacles, it's a request if we can have a snapshot of that page that you have.
Sure.
Which has the keywords and the different.
Okay, there's 2 slides. Juna Jivana, send me a note, and I'll send you those 3 slides, and then you see that they get circulated. Then, are you on the WhatsApp group?
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you
take
for
care of it?
Yes, thank you for that. But I still have a question on Nishtha.
I'm ready.
Nishtha, okay.
I like the question.
So there are 5 elements to that, and I was looking for one particular element, which is children, and I didn't see that. So because those obstacles, I don't remember all of them, but I remember like sleep, like distraction, like material attachment or entanglement.
Yes.
And then I was thinking about children because.
Why?
I'm about to explain that.
I'm asking.
So
I'm eager to hear.
Grihastha order of life, children are the primary focus and the goal of life.
No.
The delivering
it's a byproduct, it's not the goal.
Okay, delivering the children as per Krishna consciousness, that is one important goal of life of parents. But what I'm trying to say, that kind of life revolves around them to nurture them, But it also becomes an obstacle in your own spiritual growth. Because
that's different. Then that's your problem, not their problem.
Because I have to attain to their needs, because that's my prescribed duty.
That's okay. Be a mother. Mother Jasoda was a mother. And Krishna wasn't an obstacle.
Yeah. So my question is, because I kind of like started arguing with myself and tried to find answers in your instructions, and so the logic that I was giving myself was when you came down to the second way to approach Nishtha was where you're saying the humility, the gratitude, the mercy, and things like that. So I realized that maybe the first way is not my path to it.
It's okay. Front door, back door. And any way you get there is good.
But I also realized that
What's the problem?
I'm developing a lot of other qualities, but
So Krishna will help you. You're sincere. Krishna didn't abandon you. Don't think that Krishna abandoned you. That's a mistake. That's your mistake.
I feel very frustrated.
Well, that's you. But Krishna's there. Krishna will help you. Just, hit the reset button. You got your thing is motherhood, my thing is technology. And I don't get it. When something doesn't go wrong, you saw what I did. I slammed my computer. I never slammed my computer before. But, it's so pause. What's the purpose of motherhood and being in that relationship with children? What's the purpose behind it anyways? Is it about your enjoyment? Or what's it all about? So it's a dovetail I have and Krishna has. These are Krishna's parts and parcels. And I'm now being given an opportunity to serve them in a way that nurtures their purpose of life. But I can't give them their purpose of life if I don't have it. So now you have to become a good mother.
So when you asked that question, I'm sorry to interrupt that, but I want to clarify my thought process. So I asked that question to myself, like, what's purpose? And then I realized that, I'm very low at a level where I cannot have direct access to the sweetness or the nectar of Krishna's love directly. So it comes through different relationships in my life.
You're right on target. You're doing fine. Keep going. And along with what you just said, you make sure that the higher purpose is in the picture somewhere. Just recently, there was a wedding here in Houston, Texas. And I was a guest speaker. And I said, different than that and the other thing. But the most important thing is this is just a step in your bigger journey. And there's going to be, this big wedding and a big da-da-da-da. Don't forget the purpose of why you're doing this, getting married. It's not it. And then comes children. And then that's not it. And then comes home, and that's not it. So what's it? What's the purpose? So that's to hit the refresh button. So that's the same with, when things don't work with technology, I just don't use it or ask somebody that knows how to use it. But I just don't have an affinity for learning how a Tesla screen works. Or, this happened yesterday, or this morning, when the sound system didn't work. I don't know what to do. But then, so Monkey Dari knows sometimes how to make it work. You just, but you have a propensity, and you use that propensity in service to Krishna, and you offer it to Krishna. To your capacity, and as you motion with your hand, again, way down here, that's okay. Krishna knows where you are, and you offer whatever you have. To your capacity. And Krishna smiles. Let me help you. You can't do it alone. Forget it. Dreamland. But with Krishna's help, you're not alone. So don't lose Krishna in the picture. You do it for Krishna, and Krishna will help. You don't have to feel sad. You feel like I'm low. That's okay. That's humility. It's just reality. Okay, fantastic. Be honest with yourself. I'm quite insignificant.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And Krishna will help you get there. That's the good news. Something over on this side. I see two hands.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Maharaj, you gave examples of, you were comparing Ruchi Pradhan and Vichar Pradhan. And for Ruchi Pradhan, you gave some examples like Narada, boy Narad. Could you give some examples of Vichar Pradhan?
Of?
Vichar Pradhan.
Yeah. You and me were examples. We study the scripture. We contemplate. What is the scripture saying? We get 5%, maybe 3%, and we keep reading and contemplating, and there's reciprocation in course of time by contemplation. And that's the path we follow. That is us. And then be sure, you and I should be sure, what's the goal? Back to this, what's the purpose of all this? It's not just scholarship, become smart and have lots of information in our information basket. We can pull out this one and that one, and so we have lots of information. That's not the purpose. I mean, for some people that's the purpose, but that's not really what the purpose is. What's the purpose? To come to the stage where there's genuine shelter and attachment, and Krishna is everything for us. But we have other things besides Krishna is everything at this stage. So we have to contemplate why. Ask the question and read the scripture. That's a deliberation. Vichara. Pradhan. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, also, so here we are understanding, Vichar Pradhan, we are using our intelligence.
Speak slowly. I got it.
Yes. We are using our intelligence. But then also when we were talking about Nishtha, so you're saying that Ruchi Pradhan is higher.
It's not better, it's higher. It's more mature stage.
More mature, yes. But like when we were discussing Nishtha, it was written that Nishtha requires using superior intelligence.
Yes.
To develop a taste for devotional service.
Yes.
So that taste develops as a result of using...
But there's some taste, otherwise you wouldn't even make the intelligent endeavor. But it's not matured yet. There's some taste in being a kid in kindergarten, but it has to mature.
And the use of intelligence can help with that.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Be inquisitive. Brahma jigyasa. That's deliberation. Vichara pradhan. Now, if you're Prahlad Maharaj, it's bhakti. It's just serving. Anyway, you get the picture. No.
And Maharaj, you were talking about two types of nishtha.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get an overall idea between the difference between the two, so that it's clear in my head. So I think the second one was through the cultivation of good qualities like humility, etc.
Now, these are not my terms. I don't take credit for it or blame. I'm just messenger.
So that's the second one. And then the first one is it this like the use of intelligence to develop taste?
No. You're mixing two things. Then let's just keep the two things separate, not mixed. The taste can be sakshat bhakti, and taste where there's the devotion that's for those things that are supportive to attaining sakshat bhakti. Such as, and there's the nice list, mode of goodness things. But it's not just there's the mode of goodness things. There's the mode of goodness things because they help achieve bhakti. There's steadiness in bhakti, and then there's steadiness in bhakti. So three things. So we are encouraged unless you're on the spontaneous platform, some persons I know are pretty spontaneous. Like, what? Anyway, but we're generally speaking, we're to follow the vidhis and study the scripture and follow the contemplations of going to the next step. That's generally speaking the path that we're on, and the application of the path that we're on. And it doesn't guarantee anything, but it can take you to the stage of steadiness, nishtha, sakshat bhakti, and all the characteristics of one who's supposed to be a bhakta. We had this discussion like 3 times in this forum of, there are new devotees that come in and see the Hare Krishna devotees. They expect, they're perfect souls, but we're not perfect souls. And sometimes, and they see the sometimes, they go, what's this? It happens.
My last question is related to that. So in the conclusion, in the Nishtha section, you were saying that when all these attributes do arise, yasyasti bhakti, there is Nishtha in bhakti. And when these attributes do not appear, it means an absence of Nishtha.
Yes, it hasn't been ripened yet, that's all. It's not, it's close, but not there yet. The bell hasn't rung. It's okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. You took very good notes. Were you here for all the other classes? No. Okay, thank you for joining us today. Next.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Oh, look at it, it's 12 o'clock. You get the last question.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You only have 3 questions, right?
One. I'll break the cycle.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand the Pingala example that you mentioned. Is it that she was on spontaneous ruci? Is
That's what Jiva Goswami wants us to understand. She didn't have a background of deliberation on hearing from scriptural authorities and Shastra injunctions. She was in La La Land. She was a prostitute. That was her means of livelihood. That was her disqualification. It doesn't say somewhere back there, but we can assume somewhere back there, before being a prostitute in Mithila, she had some association with devotees. Because where'd the idea come from? It doesn't say she didn't have any. It doesn't say she did have any. It's implicit. It's okay?
right, Maharaj? It is okay, but when I was reading those section in Bhagavatam, it talks about her internal contemplations on how she is perceiving the external circumstances.
Yeah, she felt super detachment, disgust.
But that doesn't qualify as
That's
deliberation.
not sufficient. People can be disgusted and jump off a bridge.
So the kind of deliberations that for the path of ruci that you talk about are different than what kind of deliberations that are mentioned.
You're mixing. Don't mix. There's an element of contemplation of the futility. Yes. But that doesn't mean, therefore, bhakti. It more commonly means negation or striving for the impersonal if one goes towards Brahman. If one goes towards Brahman. Otherwise, it's just go mad. My pursuit of material happiness is fool's paradise. And you die. Mad. Like Nietzsche. He drove, he drove his car off a cliff. Sartre, the existentialist, same. You go mad. There's no shelter. There's nothing. Nothing means anything. Live or die. So, if there's positive, it's Brahman, and if there's more than positive, it's bhakti. So Pingala, specific to Pingala, she had contemplations on the futility of material existence and specifically her profession and, the nature of what was the buzz in her profession. And, it turned her stomach, and she went away, but towards something. And she made the connection that there's the goddess of fortune, and she is the consort of Narayana. Let me become like that. It's Raganuga Bhakti. Ruci for Raganuga Bhakti. That's the heading that we saw.
No, thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We now have the integration session for an hour, but we've been in class for a little bit, so if you want to take a break, walk around, go to the bathroom, we'll get started in about 3 minutes. Okay? Hare Krishna.